Many people believe that softball was a sport made by women for women. However, this statement is completely false. Softball is a sport which has been enjoyed by both men and women. Having played softball for 10 years now, I have gained the utmost knowledge of the game. Today I will be informing you about the history of softball, the rules of the game, and why people can enjoy watching or playing. But first, I would like to start by explaining how the game of softball was invented. In 1887, softball was invented many years ago by a group of men in an indoor facility. The International Softball Federation stated that men were together at the Fargo Boat Club watching the Harvard versus Yale Thanksgiving football game. When Yale won, a man jokingly threw a boxing glove at a Harvard fan. A man from Harvard swung at the glove with a long stick when it came his direction. The men drew lines inside the facility, and thus the first softball game was played. Louis Roberts Sr. was later responsible for moving the game from indoors to outdoors, and thus leagues began to grow. The name was first known as kitten ball before it was known as softball, according to the International Softball Federation. Age group leagues were formed, and they traveled to play similar leagues around the world. The National Fastball League was created. Next, I'm going to explain the basic rules people need to know about the game of softball. The first softball rule book was shortly written and published in 1889 by George Hancock after the game was created. The rule book has been altered over the years, but here are the basics. Rule number 1, each team must have at least 9 players on the field when in the defensive position, split between the infield and the outfield. Rule number 2, games consist of 7 innings or a time limit, which is usually about 50 minutes. Rule number 3, the baselines must all be 65 feet apart in a diamond shape. Rule number 4, bats must be all official softball bats. No baseball bats are allowed. Rule number 5, the ball used must be at least 16 inches in circumference. Rule number 6, when batting, 4 balls constitute as a walk. Rule number 7, when batting, 3 strikes constitute as an out. Rule number 8, if a player is hit with a ball while batting, this constitutes as a walk or a free base. Rule number 9, while base running, the runner may not leave the base until the ball leaves the pitcher's hand. Rule number 10, and finally, all players and coaches must be respectful towards each other and umpires. Failure to do so will result in removal from the game. Lastly, I will state reasons why people like to watch the game or like to play the game. Playing or even watching softball does not require over-talented people. Some people may enjoy only watching the game because it doesn't take much energy just to watch, or they don't want to get sweaty and dirty like others. People might like to play due to competitiveness or the workout. The work and motions associated with the game can cause players to sweat and get dirt on their clothes. A famous United States softball Olympian, Jenny Finch, explained that she enjoys playing the game and stated, "To some, softball is a game. To others, it's a life." I have just shared with you information all you need to know about softball. In conclusion, softball was first created by men, not women. In order to enjoy correctly play a game of softball, one must know most of the basic rules. And lastly, anyone can watch or be a participant in the game of softball as long as you enjoy playing. Any questions?
Question 1. Is there a difference between a baseball field and a softball field?
Yes. Typically, a baseball field is bigger than a softball field from pitching mound to home plate and around the bases. Also, from outfield to fence line is a longer distance also. More questions?
How far is it from the pitcher's mound to home plate?
On a softball field, from base to base is 65 feet. From the pitcher's mound to the home plate is supposed to be 50 feet. Any last questions?
Question 3, are pitchers required to wear protective gear?
Pitchers are not required to wear protective gear. It's becoming more common that they do due to the increase in injuries